Good evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about teaching methods. So just as the title said, teaching methods, it's just simply the different ways you can teach a lesson, a material, a flight, anything can be applied to this. One of the key reasons that you need to know the different teaching methods is so you know about all the tools you have in your arsenal, all the things that you can use to teach somebody. Different people learn different ways. Different materials are taught different ways. So the first one that we're going to be talking about is the lecture method. Lectures are just kind of like what we're doing here. Students are sitting there listening to the instructor teach. The instructor is going on about specific materials, answering questions if needed. One of the key things that the lecture method is used for is teaching new concepts, teaching things that are theories or just new material. Taking a new student, new private pilot candidate, and telling them the different kinds of medicals, what a medical is used for, and kind of going off on that subject. So there's a couple of different kinds of lectures. The first one's illustrated talk. That's kind of what we're doing here. We have a board. We're using it so that these students can see or can visualize what this instructor's talking about, whether that's by the instructor writing on the board what he is talking about, or if the lesson actually is graphic. So if you're talking about an engine, the different components of an engine, you could just pull up different components of an engine, talk about what each one is about, and go from there. The next one that we're going to talk about is a briefing. Briefings, as we all know, are big in aviation. Briefing can be used more for somebody who has more of a knowledge about what they're doing. Just kind of talking about what's going to be done. If you're just informing somebody what's going to happen, hey, on this flight we're going to do stalls, we're going to do spin awareness training, and we're going to do touch and goes. That's a briefing. At that point you can cover any other materials that might be relevant, but it's not really a method that allows much kind of interaction. It's really designed to be brief. It's called a briefing, and concise. The next one we're going to talk about is a formal lecture. This lecture we're doing now is kind of a combination of illustrated method and a formal lecture. Formal lectures are just kind of the instructor talking. A lot of instructors, if they're doing a formal lecture, this is going to be more of a college environment, hundreds of students. Questions are not really going to be asked. The instructor is going to get on the soapbox, he's going to talk. One thing that's really an advantage is you can convey a lot of different ideas while you're doing this. You can cover a whole giant host of material if it's a theory or whatnot. A disadvantage is that the instructor has to be aware of the students. Are the students losing interest? Are they not understanding it? There is not much feedback usually unless you're really using the illustrated method or the briefing, but there's usually not many questions. You have to be able to gauge your students. Are they learning anything? Are they getting something out of it? This, that, and the other thing. If they're sitting there daydreaming, there's no reason for you to be up here talking while they're thinking about anything else. So it's just important you're able to read your students. The next teaching method that we're going to be talking about is the guided discussion method. Some important things to know about the guided discussion method is, first off, it's a discussion. This is a two-way street. This is what's going to be used more in one-on-one teaching with a student. One of the hardest things, though, with a guided discussion is that first starting question. So you have to have a question that sparks conversation. And one of the things about those questions is you have to be able to elaborate or let the student. Another note about the guided discussion method is that your students have to have at least a base knowledge of the material. This is not good for teaching new material. Unlike the lecture method. The lecture method is great for covering new material. Guided discussion, if you're talking to students who have a base knowledge, students who know the different stages of an engine, a guided discussion would be, okay, is it right to lean the engine 50 rich of peak or 50 lean of peak? And you can sit there and you can talk. And your students can talk back and forth. This is more of a fluid lesson. It has to go well though. Some of the important things is you have to have a purpose for it. You can't just be there to talk. It has to be clear and meaningful, so there actually has to be an answer that you want. And you can guide that. If the discussion is going the way you need to steer it back. You don't want students going off on a tangent. That can completely defeat the whole point of the discussion. You have to have a single idea. Sometimes you can get away with a couple ideas, but you just want to be able to talk about that. It has to stimulate thought. So, stimulating thought, if you're not stimulating thought, you're not teaching anything. Then you're just kind of sitting there doing nothing. And like I said before, it has to relate to things that are previously taught. So, not a real good thing to do your first lesson about. So, our next topic is computer-based learning. So, in aviation, computer-based learning, we know Gleim has a lot of good software for that. Jepson, as well as Shepherd Air. This is more to get somebody ready for a test, usually a written test within aviation. There is a couple advantages and disadvantages. Should have probably done those in a different color. So, the advantages are, it's great getting you to learn written material. And it has all of the answers. It knows everything. All the answers are already there for you. So as long as you're going there, it has a large amount of information. That can also be a negative. I'll just write that. There can be too much information. You can overlearn. Overlearning is when you know things that aren't even relevant. Just too much information. So that's also a disadvantage. Another disadvantage here is going to be, if you only use computer learning, online-based learning, things like that, you are only being prepared for the written test. So we'll only put that over. It does not get you ready for the oral exam. Students who only use computer-based learning are going to be a huge disadvantage with the oral exam. The written exam, they might get 100 on, but they might fail at the oral exam because they have never elaborated more than the base knowledge. It's really great if you are dedicated. So the student must be dedicated once again. We'll put that all the way across. If the student's dedicated, great. He or she will get everything done. If the student is not dedicated, then it's pointless. They're wasting their time and money, and you could be teaching it to them better. Another disadvantage is questions. If the student is working on computer-based learning and has a question, and they only are doing computer-based learning, they don't have a ground or flight instructor at the time, nobody's there to answer the question. We do have Google, but you can't always trust the internet. So, that is computer-based learning. Next thing we're going to talk about is the demonstration performance method. So this is used a lot of the time to learn physical skills. So this is more of a in the airplane type deal. So just as it says, the instructor is going to demonstrate, and then the student is going to eventually perform. There's 5 main phases to this. The first one is instructor explanations. So this is talking about what we're going to be doing. So if we're talking about a steep turn, how a steep turn can be executed, we'll say, hey, we're going to be doing a steep turn. This is a steep turn. A bank angle of more than 45 degrees. We're going to do one turn to the left, followed by a turn to the right. We need to be maintaining plus minus 100 feet. Rollouts plus minus 10 degrees. Bank angles, just different requirements and whatnot. At that point, the instructor is going to demonstrate. So the instructor will do the maneuver. Instructor will do the steep turn. At the same time, the instructor will talk about it. At this point, the student will do. Student will do the maneuver. So at this point, students can sit there. Student's going to try to do their first steep turn, while simultaneously the instructor watches or supervises. Followed up, at the end of it, the instructor will explain the mistakes, what was good, what was wrong. More of like a debrief. While you're flying, obviously it's going to be a little bit shorter. You're not going to go into too much length on it. Once again, really good for when you're in the air while you're flying. And our last one is the drill and practice method. So this is once you have already done the demonstration method there, the demonstrate performance method, and you're just going to keep doing that drill. Good for learning how to land an airplane without an engine. You're flying along, all of a sudden the instructor pulls the power. Okay, find me a landing spot, land the airplane. If you're at an airport, land it down, if elsewhere. Instructor's choice about what needs to be done. And eventually you're just going to hone your skills. You're going to get better and better and better. Much like playing baseball, learn how to hit a ball, learn how to hit the ball better. You keep going, and everything gets better over time. So, drill and practice, kind of self-explanatory. So, once again, we'll go over our methods. So we have the lecture method, useful for a situation like this, not much instructor-student feedback. Guided discussion, students, instructor are all talking. Very collaborative effort. Students learn a lot better this way, most of the time. Computer-based, great for test prep. That's what it's there for. Demonstration performance, learning those initial tasks in the airplane. First time a student's doing something in the airplane, that's what needs to be used. And then drill and practice, just getting used to, just fine